In this third part of our EVU mini course, we continue our discussion of the ongoing debate about the future of the automobile. In this part, we'll consider the debate about the grid, the environment, and the future. When each of the earlier debate arguments that we considered in earlier parts of this course are shown to be tenuous, those who argue against EVs rely on what is sometimes referred to as the long tailpipe argument. It goes like this: EVs move pollution from the tailpipe to the power plant. This argument is extremely weak. In fact, it's counterfactual. It assumes that all electric generation capability is very dirty, and that's simply not true. About half of the power generated in the U.S. comes from hydro, nuclear, and natural gas generation capability, relatively clean and improving every year. The use of clean alternative energy sources, solar and wind, is small but growing and will continue to grow every year. Even so-called dirty power generation, exemplified by coal power plants, is getting cleaner each year. ICE vehicles are in the range of 20 to 30% efficient. Power plants are 60% efficient, and the grid is 95% efficient. What that means is that power plants and the grid are far more efficient at transforming input into energy output. Less energy is wasted and more is consumed. Here's the thing: as our power generation gets cleaner nationwide, every EV gets cleaner as well, automatically and without any modification to the vehicle. When the long tailpipe argument falls apart, those who argue against EVs rely on this: the grid can't support millions and millions of EVs. To be frank, that's a stretch. First, most people charge their EVs at night, when rates are low and grid capacity nationwide is high. In addition, the number of EVs will grow slowly, giving utilities time to upgrade capability and capacity using existing tech. For example, natural gas powered generating capability. Finally, the future for new disruptive technologies, including the possibility in, say, 20 or 30 years of inexpensive and safe fusion energy, may make this argument moot. It's also worth noting that building additional infrastructure capacity using alternative sources such as solar and wind would cost about $1.5 to $2 million per megawatt. So an expenditure of $40 billion would produce enough grid capacity to power 20 million EVs. Those EVs replace 20 million ICE cars, whose drivers currently spend billions every year on gasoline. But when we discuss upgrading the grid, you sometimes hear alternative energy such as wind or solar is just too expensive and has potential side effects. Alt energy is expensive today, but in the future, not so much. For example, the cost of an installed solar panel array is expected to decline by between 30 and 50% over the next 5 years. The environmental impact of wind and solar power are insignificant when compared to the burning of fossil fuels, and any suggestion to the contrary is highly questionable. It's also time for a reality check. Every method of generating energy has negative consequences. So the real issue is, which negative consequences can we live with and afford? Then there's the argument that's heard when politics gets involved. EVs only work because of government subsidies, or its corollary: taxpayers who don't want or like EVs are paying taxes to have them on the road. In reality, taxpayers subsidize many things. Home mortgages and charitable contributions come to mind, not to mention hundreds of tax credits for businesses of all kinds. It's a bit disingenuous to suggest that government subsidies for a new technology like EVs are somehow off limits, while existing subsidies and tax credits for a broad spectrum of personal and business issues are okay. It's also worth noting that China, India, Japan, all of the EU, and other countries all have established subsidies for EVs. Some major automotive manufacturers have decided that the road forward may involve fuel cell vehicles. The media has picked up on this and suggested that the fuel cell will be an EV killer. First, fuel cells are EVs, or fuel cell vehicles are EVs. The difference is that electricity is generated from hydrogen stored in high-pressure tanks on board your vehicle. The fuel cell then produces electricity that charges an onboard battery or drives the electric motor directly. Fuel cells and fuel cell vehicles are more complex, but do offer an alternative to BEVs or PHEVs. We'll do a head-to-head comparison of fuel cell vehicles and BEVs in another advanced EVU mini course, so I won't discuss any of the underlying tech here. To summarize this three-part mini course on the EV debate, there are many anti-EV arguments that have been proposed. Although some have elements of truth, the majority are tenuous at best and are easily refuted. Bottom line, EVs are safe, clean, and cost-effective, and will become even more so in the years ahead.